Now, guys, I believe that Caitlin Clark signed on with Nike, and I had a feeling that when Nike signed her, they were like, oh, full steam ahead. We're going to market the shit out of Caitlin Clark, yada, yada, yada. And then I believe these comments happened from what was, at the time, their biggest marketable one.
That frustration says it all. It's what happens when the most marketable athlete in women's basketball is sidelined by her own sponsor. This involves Nike, a brand that once built a bold identity around Colin Kaepernick and is now facing a federal investigation over discrimination claims. Caught in the middle is Caitlin Clark, widely seen as the biggest sports marketing opportunity since Michael Jordan. So how did things go so wrong?
Remember right before Caitlin Clark came into the league? All right, she gave an interview talking about A'ja Wilson with the AP in 2024, and she was talking about race and marketability. Quote, I think it's a huge thing. I think a lot of people say it's not about black and white, but to me, it is. It really is, but because you can be top-notch at what you are as a black woman, but yet maybe something that people don't want to see. They don't see it. They don't see it as marketable, so it doesn't matter how hard I work. It doesn't matter what we do as black women. We're still going to be swept under the rug, and that boils my blood when people say it's not about race, because it is.
That moment came when A'ja Wilson spoke with the Associated Press and made a statement that would ripple through the entire WNBA season. She directly raised the issue of race and marketability, saying black women athletes are often overlooked no matter how hard they work. To me, it really is about black and white, she said. It doesn't matter how hard I work as a black woman. We're still going to be pushed aside. The timing matters. Caitlin Clark signed with Nike in April. That same month, Wilson's interview was published. And then something unexpected happened. Nothing at all. For the next 18 months, the most talked about player in women's basketball was almost completely absent from Nike's marketing, raising serious questions about visibility, priorities, and missed opportunity.
Now, to bring this back around to A'ja Wilson, didn't anybody find it a little odd that as we sat back waiting for something to happen with Caitlin Clark, we got inundated with all of these Nike A'ja Wilson commercials. Remember this?
And if you talk smack, 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 she's gonna pop back.
I got it. 100%, I got it. Like, I'm not gonna mess up next time, I promise.
And much to the chagrin of all of us trying to watch Caitlin Clark play for the Indiana Fever, we had to sit through a series.
Remember those commercials? If you watched even one WNBA game in 2024, they were impossible to miss. A'ja Wilson's face was everywhere, paired with the same chant on repeat. The ads even ran during NFL broadcasts, and one was reportedly produced by Barack Obama's production company. At the same time, Caitlin Clark, the player pulling in nearly 3 million viewers for regular season games, was nowhere in Nike's advertising. The numbers make this hard to understand. Clark's rookie season broke every attendance record in league history. Indiana Fever crowds jumped from 4,673 fans in 2023 to 17,036 in 2024, a 319% increase. TV ratings also quadrupled when she played. Yet despite all of it, Nike said nothing.
But we survived somehow. We survived. All the while going, where the hell is Caitlin Clark's marketing at? And not till what? About 6 weeks ago? We finally got a commercial, and it was a damn good one with Caitlin Clark. But we finally got something out of Nike. Just 18 months later.
6 weeks ago, in February 2025, Nike finally released a Caitlin Clark commercial. One ad, 18 months after she signed what was reportedly one of the biggest endorsement deals in women's basketball history. Let that timeline sink in. Nike held the rights to the most marketable female athlete in American sports and chose to do almost nothing during the exact moment public interest was at its peak. So the question is unavoidable. Was this sheer incompetence, or was something else at play?
Employment Commission, a federal agency that investigates and enforces laws prohibiting workplace discrimination, says it issued a subpoena seeking to compel Nike to turn over information dating back as far as 2018. It sought details about how Nike tracked and used employee race and ethnicity data, the decision-making process behind how it set executive pay, and information about 16 programs. What? That, quote, allegedly provided race-restricted mentoring, leadership, and career development opportunities. When the company failed to produce all the information sought by subpoena, the agency filed an enforcement action in federal court. A copy of the enforcement action was not available. The EEOC did not immediately respond to email. In a statement to Front Office Sports, Nike spokesperson said, "This feels like a surprising and unusual escalation. We had extensive good faith participation in the EEOC inquiry into our personnel practices, programs, and decisions, and had ongoing efforts to provide information and engage constructively with."
Earlier this week, on Wednesday, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission announced it is investigating Nike for systemic race discrimination against white employees. The federal agency issued a subpoena demanding records going back to 2018, including how Nike tracked race and ethnicity data, how executive compensation was determined, and details on 16 specific programs that allegedly offered race-restricted mentoring and leadership opportunities. When Nike failed to provide all of the requested information, the EEOC escalated the matter by filing an enforcement action in federal court. This is not a routine complaint or a symbolic inquiry. This is the federal government formally compelling one of the world's largest corporations to explain whether its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs cross the line into illegal race-based discrimination. Nike responded by calling the move a surprising and unusual escalation, insisting it had been cooperating in good faith. But here's the part that directly connects to our story. The time frame of this investigation overlaps precisely with the period when Nike signed Caitlin Clark and then seemingly sidelined her.
Michael Jeffrey Jordan? And all the while, every damn basketball game, even NFL games, you're like, why am I looking at an Asia Wilson commercial right now? A 4-time MVP, Rhodes? Yeah, don't draw flies to shit. I mean, let's be honest. Let's keep it real here. That's what we do on this channel. Not drawing nothing. Not drawing a view to nothing. Got a full-blown marketing campaign. Didn't somebody involving the Obamas act?
Now let's look at what actually happened during Clark's rookie season, because it went far beyond basketball. A massive wave of new Indiana Fever fans, largely white Middle America viewers who were brand new to the WNBA, were quickly labeled racist by players, media voices, and even league insiders. What should have been a moment of growth for the league instead turned into a cultural standoff. When Kennedy Carter delivered a cheap shot on Clark, it was defended or downplayed. Angel Reese's repeated antagonism was framed as competitive fire and celebrated. Dejanai Carrington's eye poke sparked theories of intentional harm, and when fans reacted with anger, they weren't met with discussion. They were accused of racism. The response wasn't about the plays anymore. It was about who was allowed to be upset and why. A clear narrative took hold. If you were a Caitlin Clark fan, you were probably racist. If you discovered the WNBA because of her, you were part of the problem. If you weren't equally enthusiastic about players who had been in the league for years, you were failing some moral test. That message didn't come from one corner. It echoed across ESPN panels, social media, and even from certain WNBA players themselves. What should have been an open invitation to new fans became a gatekeeping moment, one that reframed excitement as suspicion and curiosity as hostility.
That ridiculous chant, you want to, bam, hit yourself right in the eye with something? I'm just pointing that out. Oh, but Rose, did you have to make a political... Look, I mean, it is what it is. It's an agenda-driven league. And I'm telling you, between the words that she come out and said, combined with the fact that all of a sudden you had a bunch of pissed-off WNBA players because they wasn't getting the love that Caitlin Clark was getting from her racist-ass fans. And, of course, no, they're not racist, but that's what they labeled. Let's keep it real. We all remember the war that was launched onto Caitlin Clark fans, Indiana Fever fans.
Now put yourself in Nike's position in May 2024. You just signed a white player from Iowa and are preparing what should be a massive marketing rollout. Then everything shifts. The very league you're trying to promote is suddenly in open conflict with her fan base. Players are publicly calling her supporters racist. Media discourse turns toxic. The conversation stops being about basketball and starts being about identity. At the same time, Nike's biggest women's basketball star, Aya Wilson, has gone on record saying that black women are consistently overlooked regardless of how much they achieve. That statement lands right in the middle of Clark's meteoric rise, and it reframes the entire moment. So what do you do if you're Nike? This is a company that built much of its modern brand on social justice messaging. A company that stood by Colin Kaepernick, even when it cost them customers. A company deeply invested in DEI initiatives and hyper-aware of cultural optics. From that perspective, the decision becomes almost predictable. You slow everything down. You don't aggressively market the straight, white, Midwestern star when half the league, and much of the surrounding commentary, is arguing that her popularity represents everything that's wrong with sports media coverage. You don't rush to center her, when doing so risks positioning your brand on the wrong side of an already explosive cultural debate. From Nike's standpoint, it wasn't just a marketing decision. It was a risk calculation.
And by players. And I think Nike was like, oh, this situation's too hot. We can't market the straight white girl right now. Did I say that out loud? Sure did. Sure said it out loud, didn't I? Again, speculation by me. That's what we do here is we speculate out loud so you can form your own opinion. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, make sure you're still subscribed. Check out blackwhitenetwork.com for exclusive member content. Become a member to this channel or any of our channels. Peace, I'm out. Till next.
Here's why this matters far beyond one endorsement deal. If Nike truly sidelined Caitlin Clark because of DEI concerns or fear of backlash from other athletes, that isn't just a branding choice. It's a massive market inefficiency driven by politics. We're talking about a company potentially leaving hundreds of millions of dollars on the table because the optics didn't align with its social positioning. And if that's what happened, it raises a much bigger question about how these corporations actually operate. Because the federal investigation suggests this wasn't an isolated call. The EEOC is examining systemic patterns going back to 2018. Programs that allegedly restricted opportunities based on race and decision-making processes that may have prioritized skin color over performance or market value. Now think about where that leaves Caitlin Clark. She signed what should have been a career-defining deal with the most powerful sports brand on the planet. This should have been her Jordan in the ADS moment. Instead, she was quietly sidelined while another player, one with a fraction of her audience pool, was marketed relentlessly. Clark couldn't say a word. Any public complaint would have made her look ungrateful or inflammatory. So she smiled, wore the swoosh, and watched her prime marketing window slowly close. That's why the timing of her first Nike commercial matters. February 2025, right as her second season is about to begin. 18 months after signing. Long after the peak of Clark mania, after casual fans had already drifted to the next story. That's not bold strategy. That's damage control. And here's the part getting lost in the political noise around DEI. The question isn't whether companies should value diversity. The question is whether they're making decisions based on illegal discrimination. If Nike passed over employees or business opportunities because someone was white, that isn't progressive branding. That's against the law. If Nike restricted leadership or mentorship programs based on skin color, that's illegal. Full stop. And if Nike sidelined its most valuable marketing asset because promoting her didn't fit a diversity narrative, that may not be illegal. But it's undeniably terrible business. What makes this especially relevant right now is that we're watching this exact tension play out across corporate America. The Trump administration has aggressively moved to dismantle DEI programs in government and has openly pressured private companies to follow suit. In response, multiple major corporations have already announced plans to scale back or eliminate these initiatives. Against that backdrop, the EEOC's investigation into Nike isn't random or political theater. It's a federal agency examining whether DEI crossed the legal line into racial discrimination. Which brings us back to Caitlin Clark. This situation was always going to come to a head. You can't sign the most popular player in your sport and then pretend she doesn't exist without people noticing. You can't run nonstop commercials for a player who draws a fraction of the audience while ignoring the one who quadrupled ratings and shattered attendance records. The math doesn't math. What makes this even more uncomfortable for Nike is that Clark has given them zero cover. She never complained publicly. She never stirred controversy. She wore the shoes, showed up, fulfilled every obligation, and handled the situation with total professionalism. Nike can't point to creative conflicts, attitude issues, or behind-the-scenes drama. They simply chose not to market her. During the single biggest moment of her career, when millions of new fans were discovering women's basketball specifically because of her. And that decision didn't just affect Clark. It continues to affect the WNBA whether people want to admit it or not. When a league's biggest star and most valuable marketing property comes bundled with cultural and racial baggage. So the real question is this: was protecting Nike's social justice image worth the cost? Did the company gain more by heavily promoting Aya Wilson and avoiding controversy than it lost by sidelining Caitlin Clark? From a pure business standpoint, the answer seems obvious. Clark was the draw. She drove the ratings. She brought casual sports fans into the WNBA for the first time. And yet Nike left that money on the table for 18 months while competitor brands watched closely. The federal investigation will decide whether Nike crossed any legal lines, but the business verdict is already clear. This wasn't a smart decision. Nike had lightning in a bottle and hesitated because of politics. Instead of fully embracing the moment, they stalled. Now we're left wondering what could have been one of the most powerful women's sports marketing partnerships since Mia Hamm. That's the real story here. Not whether DI programs are good or bad in theory, but whether they pushed a major corporation into making a disastrous business call. And based on everything we've seen, it certainly looks that way.